Okay, hold on. Now, okay.
The football's outside, I think. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, put that one up there. What's happening, Whisper Nation? We are going live on Friday, August 28th. It is 1:42 p.m. Pacific time. We are bringing you news and notes from around the league and camp. Everything here is fresh, real football we're finally getting into. You are here with us on The Fantasy Whispers. I'm Austin Sear, along with your host, Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travie. Together, we are the Fantasy Whispers today. Man, crazy week in camp. We got real football. We got like no COVID, which is fantastic. And running back depth charts seem to be going up and down in all different kinds of ways. Big Travie, Johnny Game Time Hicks. You want to tell the folks a little bit about what we're going to be getting into today. Travis, what can we be looking forward to on this episode right now?
David Montgomery was carted off. Then he wasn't carted off. Now he's back. He wasn't back. I don't know. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff about David Montgomery's groin.
Ronald Jones had a terrible foot injury, but then in reality, it was just he put ice on it and watched guys for the rest of practice, which was what was happening anyway. So we're gonna decipher through all the news and noise and what you need to know and what you don't need to know, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Is like there's a lot of noise going on. And because we don't have, we talked about this last week a little bit, because we don't have that preseason action, we can't really see the hard-hitting data like the actual handoffs and the actual touches. We have to go off of these fluff pieces and these overreactions by beat writers and reporters. And so we're going to try and pilfer through that with you a little bit today and answer some of your questions.
News and noise, deciphering between the two of those. And I love what you said, Travis. I've been saying it this entire offseason now that no preseason is going to mean these beat writers reporting from camp is the only information that we have to adjust our rankings. Rankings that you can go ahead and check out in the Fantasy Whispers draft kit that is still available for the great deal of only $15. Go on to thefantasywhispers.com and pick that bad boy up. 120 plus pages of all of the real news that you need to be able to make those split-second decisions in your draft, decisions that could determine missing the playoffs and winning your championship. It can just be one draft pick. So make sure you go over to thefantasywhispers.com, pick that one up. And while you're over there, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, the platform we're broadcasting this on right now. We're really close to 900 subs. We're getting super stoked for that. So please hit that bell, hit the thumb, subscribe if you haven't already. Helps us grow, and we absolutely love it. So, and Travis, you said it there. New information comes out. Your opinions should be changing with new information. That's all we have right now to make our decision.
Or maybe they shouldn't be changing, right? Maybe new information is just something that happens that reiterates your opinion already, right? Something in that nature. But it's all about taking everything you read with a grain of salt and asking yourself the questions about your takes and constantly shaping those takes throughout the offseason.
And that's what we're here to help out with, right? To take that information and to tell you what's news and really what's just noise. So let's get into it. Starting off, we've got Frank Gore, the timeless one himself, the only man who could go square to square, toe to toe with Father Time himself and probably go 10 rounds. He's been the standout in the New York Jets running back core, most notably above Le'Veon Bell. Johnny, what's your take on this right now? Is Le'Veon Bell's ADP shifting for you at all right now? And how about Frank Gore as well? Should we be thinking about him in redraft leagues?
I do think that Frank Gore is going to get touches everywhere he goes. He always, seems to deem some kind of touches. I would put it in the ballpark around 120 carries for Frank Gore. So, I don't know if I would be drafting because I don't know what the upside is. And, where you're taking them late in rounds, I would rather go for upside guys. But, if you maybe you go upside down or something where you don't have a lot of running backs and you just need a guy, then Frank Gore certainly should be startable some weeks and a flex option. Now, as far as Le'Veon Bell goes, I think that his touches are going to come down. Everything that we're hearing from Adam Gase, everything that we're seeing is deeming like they want to get his touches down a little bit more, hoping that that will help him be more fresh. This has me for some cause for concern, but if he's a little bit more efficient, then his level should be about the same. He finished with about 150 fantasy points last year, and I can honestly see him finishing about the same, which puts him right around where his ADP is going. So, at the end of the day, it's not a terrible pick. You don't love it. You're not going to scream and jump to the board to get Le'Veon Bell, but if you need a running back, they're coming off the board fast in your league, then Le'Veon Bell will be a solid RB2 for you.
Yeah, I like what Johnny said here about not only them trying to limit the touches. I mean, you could see it so much so that Adam Gase in all his glory said, "Oh, wait, Dolphins, you're going to cut Kalen Ballage? Wait a second. Let me trade for him." So much so that they want to limit the touches, because I think that Adam Gase is really addicted to this beef he's got in the media with Le'Veon Bell for some reason. Said that he had a calf injury or a leg injury earlier this week. Le'Veon Bell said, "I don't know what you're talking about. My legs are fine." There's just some things swirling around all the time that make you nervous. But I also liked what Johnny said about the efficiency of Le'Veon Bell. Had his worst career average as far as yards per attempt. That was 3.2 last year. So if they improve the line a little bit and he increases the efficiency, you like to see him even with a little bit of a dip in touches. Because remember, Frank Gore is great and he's had a great career. He's not impervious to father time. Eventually that cliff will come. And who's to say it isn't this year? So,
and Le'Veon Bell only scored, 4 rushing touchdowns last year as well. So if that goes up to maybe 6 or 7,
right? You had Sam
Sam
Darnold missing time too, right? So this offense really didn't get going the way it wanted to. So maybe some of those touches that are coming down in number are actually more quality touches in this offense.
I think we're all excited about the Jets of what they could be, but I don't think anyone's surprised at the end of the season if they finish with 4 wins.
You're not excited to take any Jets players, though.
No.
Right. So sticking with the backfield, we're going to go ahead and move from New York down to Florida. Over there in Jacksonville, Chris Thompson's been the standout in camp, one of the stars, as Sports Illustrated's John Shipley reports. This obviously takes a notch in the ceiling away from Leonard Fournette, who has been notorious after last year for accumulating over 100 targets and catching a bunch of them. But Chris Thompson comes in. This is his main thing, catching passes, which would take that role presumably away from Leonard Fournette. Big Travie, does this move Leonard Fournette for you at all, or is this what we've just kind of expected since Chris Thompson joined the team?
This is, to me, what's been expected when you get a guy like Jay Gruden who loves Chris Thompson, has historically loved Chris Thompson. This is what we always thought. Now, Chris Thompson has not finished many seasons, if any, healthy. So that's another thing working against Chris Thompson and working for Leonard Fournette. But there's some writing on the wall here with Leonard Fournette, including the Jaguars not picking up his option, trying to trade him and not being successful because nobody else in the league wanted to get him. There are some other things. The fact that this offense is not going to be this team is not going to be very good. You don't want to necessarily buy into a running back that's on a very bad team, especially if he's not going to be the main pass catching guy when they bring in a pass catching guy like Chris Thompson. But I will say, Johnny's been saying this kind of since the beginning of the offseason, and I have to make it as a devil's advocate here. The Jaguars have no allegiance to Leonard Fournette. That doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing for his fantasy usage. That means they could run him into the ground, essentially, right? And then say, we're done with you after this year. Johnny's brought up how he wants to prove it for a contract year. I don't mind people taking Leonard Fournette. I find myself steering away from that kind of black hole of running backs in those rounds and going with more wide receivers or maybe an elite tight end. But I could understand how you go after him. This does not change my outlook on Leonard Fournette at all, though. This is essentially what I've been, trying to say is those 100, targets last year are going to come down. And when we look at those targets, they weren't very good. They were not far down the field. So I'm not super excited on Leonard Fournette, but I can see why the case gets made for him.
My quick question there would be also, if Chris Thompson does go down, which he has a history of doing, health is not on Chris Thompson's side year in, year out. If Chris Thompson isn't in the picture, is there anybody who's going to be stepping up and taking over that Chris Thompson role other than Leonard Fournette, or does Leonard Fournette swallow up those third down opportunities, or is it another running back that they have, Johnny? What do you think would happen if Chris Thompson does go down?
I mean, they do have some interesting running backs behind him for sure. They drafted a running back last year. Here's the interesting thing, and what I tend to lean on in this instance, because they have been so vocal about trading Leonard Fournette, because we know the contract situation and things like that. I believe that a team they were looking to get they almost had a deal with Miami. Miami Dolphins and them almost had a deal on draft day. However, it was just the pick was just slightly too high. I think they were trying to get a second round pick, and Miami was like, well, listen, I can get Matt Breida for half, way cheaper and all this stuff, right? So to me, it would make the most sense, and I would presume the GM there would be thinking along the same lines, that they want to. They've been trying to shop this guy. They want to showcase everything that he can do, and they want to use him heavily to show, hey, this guy is a really good running back. You should want him. And I think that that's where they're going to go, and that's why I tend to, I understand the people don't want to draft him, and I totally get it. There is a big risk there, 100%. But I just think that with all the things stacking up on the plate of Leonard Fournette, it's just showing to me that, like, the dude's hungry and he's gonna eat, and I think that I want a piece of that if I can get it. So. Again, I'm with Big Travie though on if Whisper Nation doesn't want to take him because they're nervous about it. I would look elsewhere. That's fine.
Yeah, I think it's just about that
group of. Sorry, Austin. He's definitely there in a group of guys like him, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, David Johnson. These group of guys, like, you're just kind of not sure, and it's like if you're leaning one way in those guys and you're leaning away from Fournette, I got no problem with that, because the other guys, at least, I think, have a much clearer path to pass catching in a more profitable fashion.
I just kind of summing up that point there from Travis. There is that third, fourth round of running back options that are there that look really attractive, but just have traditionally not panned out in the same way. And I'd say that between Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Mark Ingram, Todd Gurley, one or two of those guys is going to do pretty darn well for you. They've got the volume there. We've seen upside in the past. None of them have hit 30 years old. It's just which one is it going to be? But volume plays are looking pretty good in those ones. So go ahead and take them, but they're just, that ceiling isn't going to be what you probably might hope that it could be. Moving forward now, going from a not so good team in Jacksonville to a very good team in Kansas City. Daryl Williams has taken the number 2 role behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They brought in DeAndre Washington out of Oakland, now Las Vegas, last year. It was expected to be the number 2, but it's looking like Daryl Williams, third year back, is going to have that role. CEH, though, does look to be holding on to the top spot. Johnny, does this make you think that there's going to be any kind of timeshare situation happening, or is Daryl Williams just a strong handcuff now for the rookie CEH?
I just want to take a second to say, if you followed us, Whisper Nation, on our Instagram, I will say that I did call this on the day that Damian Williams opted out, and Sleeper had said that they expected Washington to be the guy that you wanted to pick up, and I said, well, this is probably where I would steer, and it was the Daryl Williams. I'm pointing that out because, not to say like beat my chest or whatever, but it is important that you follow us on all platforms. That's mostly why I say that, because I didn't get to say that on YouTube. And so, Daryl Williams he's a big running back. He's 6 feet tall, 235 pounds. That's a really thick running back. And, CH, he's pretty stout himself. And so I don't think this should have any hesitation on you drafting CEH. I think that they're still going to use him as the bell cow. They are going to use him a bulk. But you also have to remember, like, there are going to be touches in this backfield that they will give to other running backs. And, if there is a slight dip, because it was also mentioned that Daryl was showing that he was the best pass pro of the entire group. Now, that's really important. But I think CH is going to be fine. I think he'll be a great first-round pick this year. But I do think that Daryl Williams will have some weeks where he has fantasy upside. We say this all the time. The starting running back for Kansas City averages 1.7 rushing touchdowns per game. And so, if you're getting a guy, let's say CH is averaging 1, and you have a handcuff or a late round dart throw that has a chance of scoring a touchdown, you're like, sure, I'll put him in on like a week where you're thin at running back or something. And you never know.
I think it just becomes a very interesting dart throw, right, Johnny? Now you've got something in Daryl Williams at the end of drafts that you can kind of invest in. If you're in a running back needy league, you've got hopefully the true backup to a guy in CEH that they like really much. Should anything happen to CEH, Daryl Williams, when LaShawn McCoy went down, Daryl Williams was okay. Like he posted some pretty legit RB2 numbers for you in like a 3-week span last year. So I would be excited about somebody being named the backup anywhere if you have a very profitable first string running back somewhere, because it means it's just another guy you could invest in late in drafts to try and catch that lottery ticket by year's end.
Sort of pump a little bit of caution on this, and I'm feeling on this report that Daryl Williams is going to be locked into that number 2 role, but they've got a lot of guys over there in Kansas City behind CEH that are really Jags, just a guy over there. I mean, Daryl Williams averaged 3.4 yards per carry last year. He averaged 3.4 yards per carry his rookie season. He's gotten a total of 22 targets in his 2 years in the NFL, and he's if he ends up being a guy, it's going to be based on sheer opportunity. And I just don't see such an intelligent coach like Andy Reid leaning on a Jag like a Daryl Williams when you have also the Washington Thompson pulling another guy off the street over here. I think that this one is going to be, if it's not CEH, you're probably going to see a mixture.
They said the same thing about Damian Williams a couple of years ago as well. He was a journeyman, didn't really stand out, and then Andy Reid turned him into a pretty good running back. So I think the coaches will put him.
Daryl Williams last 2 years to do the same thing, right?
And like Travis said, when he played, he was an RB2.
And he had 2 games. He had 2 games where he was RB12, RB14 last year against Baltimore and Detroit, because LaShawn McCoy was not available there. So I'm just saying, like, you should buy into good offenses. That should be a theory that you do in fantasy football. This is a good offense. If you're sitting there in the 5th, I'm not saying you invest in the 10th round like maybe you would a Damian Harris or something like that. Right. But like if you're sitting there at the end of drafts and you're looking for an upshoot guy like this, you could do a lot worse than a backup running back in a Kansas City offense.
Oh, most definitely. Whoever is the run in the show in Kansas City is going to be a very, very valuable piece. Most definitely. So sticking with valuable pieces and the running back position, let's talk about the big one that came through this week. David Montgomery injured his groin. Groin is still on the bone that we heard.
Yeah.
It's looking like a 2 to 5 week timeline. Meat is still on the bone. Johnny, I know that you've got a lot of investment over here in David Montgomery. What's your take right now on the situation in Chicago?
I am breathing heavy, a huge sigh of relief. When the injury first came out, it sounded really bad. We didn't see the video initially. People were speculating because it was a non-contact injury, that it was an ACL or Achilles, and I was fearing the worst, as like you said, someone who is heavily invested in David Montgomery this year. I was quickly seeing my hopes and dreams of a fantasy championship quickly dissipate. But then, once again, plug our Instagram channel shamelessly. I went on Instagram and I had reported, that day that I had spoken with a couple of physical therapists who had said at max it would be a 6-week thing, which calmed my nerves. And then sure enough, the next day it came out that it was 2 to 4 weeks. So what that is projecting is that, he might be able to go by week 1. I wouldn't count on it. I would more so, and personally, I would hope that the Bears hold him out until week 2 or after week 2 when he is fully healthy with it, instead of pushing him back. Because I do think that they are going. Everything that I'm reading and seeing is they do expect him to be in their plans. They like him as a running back. And so I think that his ADP will come down, be adjusted a little bit. He's adjusted to be missing 2 games. That's what I did. That's where I have him in my rankings. I moved him down. I think he's much more of like a 6th round, 7th round guy now.
All right. Moving over now to Pittsburgh, where Big Ben feels good. He essentially had Tommy John surgery. He's 38 years old right now, but he himself stated he's feeling good. The beat reporters have had really positive reporting coming out of Steelers camp right now. This could obviously have a big impact on the quarterback himself, who can be a fantasy winner there, getting him really late in drafts. Also, you hope this means good news for the weapons out there in Pittsburgh with James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster, second-year Deontay Johnson as well. Big Travie, I know you've got a long-standing love affair with Big Ben and the possibilities that his arm brings to the table. How are you feeling right now about these reports coming out of Pittsburgh and Big Ben Roethlisberger?
I feel really good. I feel, we talk all offseason, right, about drafting late. You should draft late. You should want to draft late. You avoid injuries and all this thing. I'm going to make a case for drafting early here, and that's because the hype that's coming out for Big Ben right now is going to ruin some guys' ADP that has been just so juicy and so tantalizing to pounce on. And I'm talking about James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson and Big Ben himself, as Austin talked about there. And we're looking like if this continues for another week and a half, you're going to see these ADPs go up right before the start of the season. And here's the deal. Like what you look at, when you look at Tommy John surgery, the way it's progressed, some guys in the MLB have said that they throw harder and better after this surgery. They feel stronger in that arm after this surgery. So Ben feels so good. I was reading in The Athletic. He said he was feeling so good. He scrapped his his planned throwing session and went with his usual throwing session because his arm was feeling so good, had no soreness, had no numbness, all these things that, make you feel really good about where Big Ben is at. And I think the hate on this offense has got to stop because this is a team that could sneak around, mess around, get a triple-double, mess around and win this division because you have Big Ben's leadership. That defense is really good. They've got a lot of weapons on offense. So I would be really excited as a Steelers fan, and I'm really excited as a guy who wants to invest in the Steelers offense in fantasy.
So you heard it here. Big Travie's going all Steelers on his fantasy team.
I wouldn't hate it.
I don't know about that, but I'm saying you could do it.
You could do it. It's very doable.
Here's the thing that we don't talk about a lot. We've talked about it a little bit. What do you want the most in a COVID offseason like this? We're in a lockout season. You want continuity. I want a quarterback that's played with the same coach for a long time, same players for a long time, knows his offense. I'm just saying, I think Steelers, I think the Saints, the Patriots are teams I'm going to necessarily want to trust in a little bit. Maybe not so much with the Patriots because Cam's coming in, but the continuity around these organizations is something you can trust in because they're not getting the reps, but maybe they don't need them as much as other teams that are changing offenses.
If that's the case, Travie, that makes a really clean filter to apply. If you believe in that take, there's really not a lot of continuity you can find at this moment in time in the NFL. There's just been so many new head coaches, so many new quarterbacks coming in. I was reading an article the other day that was talking about quarterbacks and wide receivers with at least a 4-year-long relationship. There was only like 4 guys on that list.
Wow.
It was Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember the list, but it was
Julio Jones.
Matt Ryan, Julio Jones was another one of those. It was less than 5 people that was on there. You got a lot of new relationships.
Kenny G, Matthew Stafford.
I don't even think that one.
I don't think that's 5 years, is it?
Oh, not 5. Sorry, I thought you said 4.
I think they're coming into their 4th year. I think Kenny G's coming.
But either way, I mean, and just like that's the thing is like people want to discount some of these offenses. Go ahead. I'm not going to discount a guy in Ben Roethlisberger. They essentially 2 years ago was the QB2. He broke the record for I think passing yards in that season, and at the same time they said, you know what? He goes, I don't need Todd Haley. Give me my old quarterbacks coach. Ben is one of the few quarterbacks in the league that is essentially his team's offensive coordinator. Like he essentially acts as that role for them. And so I'm trusting more of these offenses where there's less question marks swirling around that team. Like, how is he going to match with this guy? Ben's going to go out there and throw it, bottom line. And they're going to hand it off to one running back as long as that running back's healthy. That's what the Steelers do. And by the way, they've drafted really, really good wide receivers. So invest in their wide receivers.
So we're talking about continuity and how there's not a lot of it, which is the case in Los Angeles. Over there in the Rams situation, especially with the backfield, where Todd Gurley dominated that backfield for years, was the highest paid running back in the league. He's now there with Atlanta, and they now have a couple of young guys in Cam Akers, Daryl Henderson, and then even Malcolm Brown there as the third option. Cam Akers, we know, was taken in the 2nd round this year in the draft. Daryl Henderson, though, was drafted last year and expected to be a lead guy. Daryl Henderson's hurt right now, which gives Cam Akers a little bit of a leg up. Beat writers are still expecting it to be a 1A, 1B kind of situation. I want to ask Travis this one first, as he's in Los Angeles. Do you expect Cam Akers to be the lead dog starting off, or is this going to be more of a true committee situation? And then how does this develop midway and near the end of the season, Travis?
I think it'll really depend on that hamstring of Daryl Henderson. Like, we heard initially he wasn't going to be ready. They didn't know if he'd be ready. And then McVay came out and said, oh, he'll be ready by week 1. So now, like, what is it? Like, do I know? I don't know. But if you remember, you know, hamstrings can keep people out for a lot longer than they predict. We really don't know. I mean, like, think about Dalvin Cook a couple years ago, and that hamstring just nagged him into the season. So when I'm looking at this, if Henderson isn't healthy, you know, I think Cam Akers is worth the investment. You know, Johnny on our Twitter account, another shameless plug, asked Whisper Nation, who's our Miles Sanders of this year? And honestly, Cam Akers could be that bet here, because he could be a guy that leads this team by the end of the year and just takes it over. So it really depends, but I would bet on Cam Akers. To me, he projects to be the more well-rounded, all-around back for this offense that they have been trying to look to replace since Todd Gurley had the arthritic knee. But Johnny knows this. Daryl Henderson was my guy last year. He was my favorite running back prospect. I mean, when you look at his tape, he's got juice. I mean, he looks great, but he just didn't get the zone running scheme very well. And so I don't know. If he's hamstrings scare me, I'm staying away from Henderson. He was one of my later round stashes. Actually, I'm warming up more on Cam Akers this year.
It's kind of funny because he had a couple of really good highlight runs last year, Daryl Henderson. And when he had those highlight runs, it was, and you watch the tape, it was when he trusted that cut, right? Like, or he trusted, because the zone running scheme, for a lot of people who don't know, you have to plant your foot and trust that your line is going to create a hole before it's created. That you're literally like, okay, I'm cutting now, and I may go into a straight up car wreck because this hole could not be there like it's supposed to be. But in general, when it works right, they cut, they make the gap for that split second so the running back can get through. And on those times when he trusted that and he just went with his instinct, you saw how good this guy can be. But again, Cam Akers is a guy they have high draft capital in. I do, you know, my philosophy that I like to do, especially in these ones that come out and they're like, oh, we're a straight up committee. I will generally just go for the better value. And that's where I take my stab. But I would not be surprised. I like Cam Akers a lot, and I would not be surprised, like Travis said, if he was the Miles Sanders of this year. I think that's a good call.
I like Johnny's take, and I traditionally agree with grabbing the better value of the case, which usually ends up being the last guy taken. You know, in Tampa Bay, for instance, I think Chris Godwin, Mike Evans both got really good shots at being the number 1. I would love to grab the second of those 2 guys. I will say, though, and I've mentioned this a couple of times now, it was one of the notes I put down in my fantasy football end of season notes in 2016. And that was, Austin, don't have fear drafting the lead guy in a committee in rounds 4 through 6. Rounds 1 through 3, I don't want to play that game if we're talking about a committee. But if you got a guy who, even if it's a 1A, 1B kind of situation, in rounds 4 through 6, I feel comfortable going ahead and putting a bet on a guy that, if there wasn't that competition, would probably be going in the 2nd round. So it's definitely a little bit of a gamble. But if Daryl Henderson is that backup, then that's a 2nd round pick status. But hey, if Daryl Henderson ends up being a real guy, Cam Akers shouldn't be going until the later single digit, maybe even double digit rounds. So keep an eye on those running back dynamics, not just in LA, but also across the league. And Buffalo is no exception to that one either. Devin Singletary, Zack Moss, kind of similar dynamic to Cam Akers, Daryl Henderson. We got a 2nd-year player and a rookie running back coming in, where the rookie, well, Devin Singletary had a good year, right? 5.1 yards per carry. He did his thing over there in Buffalo. But they went ahead and they picked up Zack Moss, and the reports coming out of camp have been very, very good for Zack Moss, and we're also picking up on some fumble issues potentially from Devin Singletary. Johnny, is this moving now into a more real committee? Is it a 1A, 1B? Before it was like a 1-2. Is it a 1A, 1B, or is it still in that 1-2 range for you there in Buffalo, Johnny?
I think it's definitely much more moving into the 1A and 1B kind of thing, as opposed to the 1 and 2. The fumbling issues are a huge thing. Teams do not like when their players fumble, especially if you have a capable running back like Zack Moss as the 1B option. And so that is in all why I've been kind of getting scared off of Singletary this year. I love his talent. I think he's a great running back. And I think that the Bills think he's a really good running back as well. But there are issues. There are the fumbling issues. There are the issues with the workload. And so when you combine all those things, similarly, like I love the fact that like Travis brought up of like investing in offense. Like the Bills are going to run a lot. They're going to run the ball a lot. That's what they want to do. But like going into and investing in offenses that don't have a lot of question marks, you're better off investing in those guys. And that I think is a tremendous point. And that I don't know what the workload is supposed to be. They've been all over the map. And so that's why if we're talking value, I go with Zack Moss. He was my change of heart guy at the running back position just because the value's there. But, in general, like that's why I would be skipping on Singletary this year.
People ask me, Travie, why do you wear shades indoors? And usually I'd say it's because my future's so bright. I got to wear shades. I'm going to say this is for actually Zack Moss today because his future is so bright. I'm wearing shades for him because I don't want to get blinded by his bright future. I'm just here for all the Zack Moss love. I'm glad the industry is catching up. I don't mean to say I told you so. Honestly, I got most of my love from Pro Football Focus, so they deserve a lot of credit for their draft guide and what they put in there. But Zack Moss projected to be the better all-around back. And if you can win any kind of arguments in preseason, baby, I'm winning it now with Zack Moss. But they still haven't played a single down, so we shouldn't get too excited because we haven't seen it on an actual football field yet. And but I just been really pleased with what's coming out of camp with Zack Moss, and really just reiterates the fact that I'm probably not investing in a guy like Devin Singletary. His ADP is just a little too high for me right now.
We talked in this offseason about the impact a preseason play can have on your ADP and evaluation of these players. A few years back, I'm the cautionary tale of undervaluing Tyreek Hill until I saw Patrick Mahomes hit him with that deep-ass bomb in that preseason game, took him in the 3rd round, was stoked about it, and he ended up being the number 1 wide receiver in the league that year. I think that this Zack Moss situation is a prime example of if you saw one play in preseason happen where Zack Moss balled out and in that same game, Devin Singletary had a not impressive performance, you could see Zack Moss jump 5 rounds in ADP. You could all of a sudden say it's 1A, 1B, Zack Moss is leading the way, or it's a pure split and expecting him to take over that role come the end of the season in snowy, cold-ass Buffalo. So I think that Zack Moss, to me, is the most exciting late round handcuff stash. We're talking about the Alexander Madisons, the Tony Pollards, the A.J. Dillons. Like, to me, Zack Moss is a guy with an actual path forward to being the lead running back on a run-heavy team that also plays in cold weather. Like, I think Zack Moss could be a league winner this year.
Not to just keep pounding the drum on the Bills, but I do agree with you on the league winner sentiment. And one of the sub-narratives in that is the fact that the guy who redid the Colts offensive line, the way we know it now to be this dominant offensive line, actually is in Buffalo, working on their offensive line in Buffalo. So, like, there's all these sub-narratives with Buffalo. Tom Brady's finally gone. They have this good defense. Josh Allen's kind of, maturing. And I just think there's all these things to lead to the fact that they're going to run. They're going to run heavy. They're talking about another sub story was that Josh Allen, they want to run less this year because they want to keep him healthy, which means could he run less and get less of those 7 rushing touchdowns? More could go to Zack Moss or Devin Singletary, most likely Zack Moss, in my opinion. So there's all those things working in the favor of those backs in Buffalo.
Moving on into another snowy part of our country, Cincinnati, Joe Mixon. He missed practice this week with migraines. And some are thinking these migraines might be related to that long-term contract that he's looking for.
If I don't get paid, I get headaches. Really bad headaches.
and we've seen people, use this a little bit to let the higher ups know that you're not totally satisfied and we want continuity and to get it going. I don't really see this though as having an impact on Joe Mixon's upside, his floor play, his role on the team, nor his ADP. This just kind of seems
Wait, are you hearing he's joking about it? Because I didn't hear that.
Just some have speculated. According to Hayden Winks, he had included this in his breakdown of the situation. He hasn't practiced much due to headaches, but and we all know migraines are brutal. Like I don't even like calling them headaches. It's like it just really
that's why I mean I guess it is a really really good thing to say you are having if but that would be I hope he's not doing that. That would be a little frustrating because I mean Ingram, Brandon Ingram from the Chargers, he was at practice, but he was like, yo, I'm not practicing because I'm holding out, but I'll be here at practice. And you would think that if Joe Mixon were going that route, he would just do that. Like, they seem to be fine. Like, coaching staff, at least on what they showed on Hard Knocks, they were saying, oh, we understand you got to do you. It's a business. Like, you take care of your family. But when you're ready, be ready to work. And that's what happened. Like, he got his contract done. He was at practice the next day. That I just find the reason I'm asking is because we had a show previously in the summer where we talked about players who held out and the draft capital and what happens when players do that, and it wasn't a good thing like at all. Like rarely did the guy actually come back and perform either to expectations or better, and so. That's the only reason why I'm asking. I genuinely don't know.
All right. Well, beyond the migraine issue, what real or not, like does it actually, or holdout issue, real or not with the migraines, does it actually affect your ADP for Joe Mixon, Johnny? Like, are you still comfortable taking Joe Mixon in the first round?
If I'm at the back end, I'm completely okay with taking Joe Mixon because I think that there is a path where he's top 5.
Because right now he's RB9. So if you're, assuming no wide receivers go in the first round, which they tend to do, a couple of them do, you're taking him in usually. I
would not take him above Josh Jacobs. I wouldn't take him before Nick Chubb. Those are the two that I would not take him before. Yeah.
I don't think you see Joe Mixon just slipping back, even if no matter what's really going on. I think Joe Mixon's ADP is appropriately placed. I don't see him falling back behind Eckler or Aaron Jones, given there's no real other competition for him there. And I also just don't see Joe Mixon moving ahead of Josh Jacobs or any of those other backs, Dalvin Cooks, Derrick Henry's, anything like that. So I think that barring something strange, he's probably exactly where he's going to stay this whole time. But a guy who's been moving has been J.K. Dobbins. Well, maybe not. He has been looking pretty good and apparently solidified his early season role. They have a lot of running backs over there behind Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. It seems like Baltimore is always just with a full stable of running backs. How are you, Travis, right now evaluating all of these really good running backs that they have? Mark Ingram always just performs as ADP. J.K. Dobbins, extremely exciting rookie coming in this year. Justice Hill was an exciting rookie coming in for them last year. And Gus Edwards, I mean, this guy I feel bad for this guy. It's like he gets 5+ yards per carry, and they never really let him do anything. So,
I think
how are you looking at this team, Travis?
I think when you look at like Gus Edwards, who's fine between the tackles, does a really good job, as you said, a very effective runner. Justice Hill is a guy that they kind of like to use a little bit in the passing game. He's good in space. They like those things there. You look at J.K. Dobbins, and I think he's a guy that projects much like Mark Ingram to be able to do it all. And I think that's why they spent the draft capital on him. That's why they want to continue to do what they do over in Baltimore and run the football. I think the only thing you've got to watch here is some of the beat writers are saying this takeover or this push for work may be happening sooner than we thought. It's a reason why Gus Edwards' name a couple weeks ago was brought up in trade discussions. It's a reason why they're saying he could have a solidified early season role. I like Dobbins as one of those upshot picks in later rounds. As a guy that you could go and invest in because I think his upside is there should anything happen to Ingram, or should he push Ingram all the way out. But Ingram isn't a bad bet either to be a guy that's going to get a lot of rushing touchdowns this year and continue to lead the backfield. Right now, though, Dobbins going in the 8th round of 12-team drafts. I think that's fine. You've loaded up on your core. You've loaded up on all these players. Now you want to take some shots and swing for the fences. J.K. Dobbins is sitting down there. You've got some other guys you can invest in. But is there, any reason to think J.K. Dobbins couldn't be that Miles Sanders of this year, like we talked about with, Cam Akers or some of these other guys that are sitting there? So for me, I still love investing in Mark Ingram because you can get him at a discount. He did have some lucky receiving touchdowns, as we've talked about before, but that team is going to run. Even if they are going to pass more than they did last year, they still were like 90 attempts higher than San Francisco last year in running the football. So they're going to continue to run the football. That's what they want to do. It's what Greg Roman's always done, Harbaugh's always done, and now they have a team built around doing that efficiently, especially with both usable backs.
Yeah, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I wouldn't be too afraid of Gus Edwards. I wish he would be getting more work, but he's not, and they just keep drafting running backs to put ahead of him year after year. Another running back situation that's got a ton of guys, as it always does, is Bill Belichick's New England Patriots. And let us just remind everybody that Bill Belichick does not care about your fantasy team. He really doesn't. And this year is no exception to that as well. Sony Michel was looking like the guy to have on your squad early this year. He's then been dealing with some foot issues and has faded dramatically in the draft. Damian Harris has a path. He's been standing out in camp, looking good. But now Sony Michel is back. We've got Rex Burkhead and James White over there too. Johnny, with all of these running backs over there, with seemingly somewhat undefined roles outside of James White, how are you stacking these guys up, and what would you be looking to do in drafts with the New England backfield?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Yeah. I actually think that Sony's kind of becoming a little bit of a value with all the hype and everything that's going around. Like, Damian Harris is a really good running back. There are still reports that he's, still getting touches with Sony back. But we've had this conversation now for 2 years about Sony Michel, and for back-to-back years, he's had over 200 carries in this offense. And for Bill Belichick uses him when he's healthy. So I still feel the most comfortable and confident in drafting James White. If I need a running back in the later rounds, I need like you're like, oh man, I only have one running back, maybe two running backs, and it's round 9, 10. I would grab Sony because I feel the most confident that his floor is going to be enough to where you can use him. Does he have a tremendous upside? Not sure the upside is tremendous with Sony. On the other hand, Damian Harris has all the upside because if he takes over for Sony, I think he could be better than Sony. And so the upside is with Damian. So if I'm a guy that, maybe I invested first 3 rounds, I went RB heavy and grabbed 3 running backs, and now I'm sitting here in the 12th, and my team is pretty much filled out, and I'm just sitting at dart throws. I love taking Damian Harris, and that's when I would do it in that instance because of that upside. So I think it's just based on how you build your team is how I would go about taking this backfield if you're going to. I probably, to be honest with you, just going to straight up avoid this whole entire backfield because I really don't know how this is going to shake out. There are a lot of names that are just like pretty good football players, but like analytics are a big base on this, and that's, a big part of Bill Belichick and the way he runs his running backs out there. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to light a candle. Oh, go ahead, Travis.
I have to disagree that you want to avoid this backfield. I think you should invest, and I think right now a lot of them are priced pretty well. James White's going in the 8th round for a guy who a lot of people say doesn't have upside, but like 2 years ago caught a ton of touchdowns, was their red zone leader in targets. So like, we think that he's as good as Christian McCaffrey? No, but is he the most likely guy to beat Christian McCaffrey in this Cam Newton, Bill Belichick combo? Yeah, he's going to catch a lot of passes. So especially PPR, I like where James White is going. He's definitely going to have a role. Then you've got Sony Michel, who I agree with you, Johnny. Like, I think if he can come back and put it on the field and not end up on PUP, like in the 11th round, that's a nice safe floor for a running back who's going to get a bunch of touches.
Yeah.
But then Damian Harris in the 14th round is basically both of those guys combined if he hits his ceiling. So, like, he's going to be the guy that can be everything for that offense. So I think you want a piece of the New England backfield. You want to try and figure out which one it is. And I don't think any of them are terribly priced to do so. I have been leaning more in taking James White because I think he's the more sure thing. And I know he costs a little bit more than those guys. But Damian Harris is the next guy I'm going for in the 14th. I'd be more inclined to punt Sony Michel just because he is that floor play at the very best and doesn't have a huge ceiling with the injury. So I like James White and Damian Harris. I think investing in them, depending on your format and your roster construction, it would be my call.
I'll light a candle for the potential loss on Sony Michel, and it's not lost, and that needs to be a part of this narrative. It's still this man is just 25 years old. He's going into his 3rd season, but it should be such an exciting player for fantasy managers out there. We're talking about a dude who was drafted by the New England Patriots in the 1st round. When do the New England Patriots take a skill position? You know, in the 1st round, I know they've done now.
Just know if they do, you shouldn't draft them.
Pretty much, right? Like Damian Harris. I've been excited about Damian Harris as an upside play going back for months now. I think he's had a path. I'm just not impressed. And this is based purely on the eye test and the smell test for Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel. Like, they come in and kind of do their jobs, but they're not flashing. They're not making highlight plays. And I just don't know enough about Damian Harris. I'm saying, like, he's the mystery box. He's a really inexpensive mystery box who could be leading the way for New England, which is an exciting piece. But Sony Michel, a 1st round drafted running back, 25 years old with no real competition behind him. It's like, this should have been such an exciting piece in fantasy redrafts this year, and it's not. But we'll see how it all shakes out this year, as we always do. But just remember, Bill Belichick does not care about your fantasy team. He never has, and he never will.
I want to give a shout out to some of these. I want to give a shout out to some of these people in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Mar Patel was giving us some questions on Le'Veon Bell. Groggy style in here talking. There's some Le'Veon Bell love, some Le'Veon Bell truthers in the chat right now. That's kind of crazy. But there's 14 of you watching. We've got 8 likes. If everybody could get a like button in their hand, click that for us. We would greatly appreciate it. And Austin, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to give them a little bit of love there.
Interrupt me with that hot fire, man. You interrupt me all the time, brother. I appreciate that. Love having Whisper Nation here with us. Thank you guys all for joining us this Friday. We're going to shift it over now to a little bit of wide receiver talk. I love this one. Sterling Shepard right now is torching cornerbacks in the Giants training camps right now. There's been a lot of conversation. We've had it.
They have no cornerbacks.
Not after Sterling Shepard gets done with them, apparently. But yeah,
they didn't have him before. Point. They definitely don't have him after.
Yeah.
No, they don't. No, they don't. But we've been going back and forth between Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. Golden Tate, we know, is going to be getting a lot of targets, presumably. We know what his ceiling is, though, for the most part. But Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, we talked about this on the mock draft marathon. Evan Silva had a lot of great points on it. You can check out that specific draft Johnny dropped on the YouTube channel just yesterday or the day before. Really, really good tidbits on there from lots of things from running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, different draft strategies. Really encourage you to check out some of those older videos there. But now we've got in New York, Sterling Shepard emerging as this number 1 who's been behind Darius Slayton in terms of ADP. Johnny, how excited do you get now for Sterling Shepard? Is this a value play? Should you get him while you can right now? Or is this going to be a wide receiver committee type of situation? What are you expecting right now out of the Giants and their wide receivers?
Well, I think part of the hate on, or the part of the reason why, Sterling Shepard is going behind Slayton is because Slayton is the big play upside guy, and we saw it at last year because, in part, because Sterling Shepard was injured, and so that allowed Slayton to get on the field, and because of that, we tend to forget just how good certain players are, and we forget that Sterling Shepard is a very solid wide receiver himself. He has yet to fully, break out, I would say. I think he has the talent. We have to remember where he went to college. He went to Oklahoma University, which is very well known for producing wide receivers. Marquise Brown, who we're really, really high on coming in his second year. He was drafted or came from there. You have my boy CeeDee Lamb came from Oklahoma. So they're really good with producing wide receivers. So we need to remember that. And we also need to remember just how good he is when he is playing and he's on the field. If you do that, you're like whispering, or you're like us and jamming him and seeing him as a mega value later in rounds. Austin, it's interesting. We have a lot of conversations, before shows and,
Oh, you said we have a lot of conversations. And I said, yes, we do.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of conversations outside of the show, about the show, about players and all this stuff. And, we always talk about, what is a guy that could really, really break out? Is there a guy that is going in the later rounds that's a wide receiver one for their team, maybe not getting the clout for that player? And I think that Sterling Shepard might be that guy that you're kind of looking for. He's the number one on his team. That offense should be pretty good. And he's shown that he has talent, but he's not been able to stay healthy for a full year to really put it all together. I think this could be the year. If it is the year, this could be it, and Sterling Shepard could be a mega steal.
Yeah, the one thing that is scary here is obviously that his injuries aren't anything that aren't freak. This is multiple concussions now for Sterling Shepard, and you could be one away from really ending your career. And I know that there was a point last year where he was thinking of just shutting it down completely for the year. So that one scares me a little bit. But once again, everybody's got injury issues. Everybody's got injury concern. It is the NFL. It's a violent sport. I did want to bring up and give Hayden Winks some credit here, as well as Matt Harmon. I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago with Matt Harmon, who does Reception Perception, and he was talking about how good Sterling Shepard is in his route tree, how good he is as a route runner. He gets open. He beats people all the time. We're seeing that in camp, obviously, against dilapidated or not cornerbacks over in New York. But then Hayden Winks wanted to point out his usage. He said the fantasy usage over the second half of 2019 versus the current ADP for the New York Giants wide receivers. Shepard was the wide receiver 23 in usage last year, and his ADP right now is wide receiver 49. Whereas you look at Tate and Slayton,
dude.
Yeah, and you look at Tate, who was the wide receiver 30 in usage, and he's the wide receiver 60 in ADP. Slayton was the wide receiver 42 down the stretch last year, and is the wide receiver 45 in ADP. It's probably a little bit crazy that Slayton's going ahead of him. It makes sense if you're looking at just highlights because you love the juicy plays that Slayton put on tape. But Shepard is that guy to invest in, I believe, in this offense because he's got a little bit of both Tate and Slayton's game in him. He can make the big plays, and he can be the possession receiver for this offense. So I'm really excited to see what Danny Dimes can do this year, and Shepard would be a big part of that. Remember that the reason people like Slayton or like Tate or like Evan Ingram are because of splits when Shepard was not on the field. So we need to remember that when we're looking at these other players. And if that's the case, we need to remember who Shepard is in this whole situation.
We also need to remember that the Giants were okay with letting OBJ go because they were confident in Shepard being the number one guy for them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
and money.
And they took Danny Dimes 2 rounds before they had to, but they do them. I'm excited to see what's about to happen over here, and to give Travis a shout out. This great takes that he's bringing there over on Shepard is coming from a guy who has Darius Slayton in his dynasty team. So it is in his best interest to be leaning on Slayton, but you hear him giving that high praise over there to Sterling Shepard. It's because that's how the man views it, and that's the way the man speaks. I want to hit Travis with this question. Now, he is the Packers fan. We see that beautiful Devontae Adams jersey hanging over his right shoulder. Lazard has solidified himself as the Packers' number 2, according to the beat writers right now. We know it's.
I'm surprised we're hearing anything else come out of Green Bay other than Jordan Love can't throw an accurate pass right now.
Right.
That seems to be the only thing the media wants to report. But go ahead, Austin, on that Lazard.
This is Aaron Rodgers' team. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers' team for a while. The Patriots went ahead and drafted Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo, and it was
in the
Tom
first
Brady
round?
who ended up being the last one standing.
In the first round.
Who ended up being the last one standing.
Jamarcus Russell was taken in the
round.
first round, Johnny. Isn't that what you told me about first round picks? Doesn't really matter, does it?
No,
if they don't
well, Johnny
produce,
tries to get under the skin of a couple
if they
of
don't
Packers
produce,
fans
does it
with
matter? I mean,
erroneous takes.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
I'm just saying, like, I
He's
don't.
just trying to get under our skin.
No, you brought up
nonsense.
you brought up
You're like the
Jacoby.
rest
Hold
of-
on. He brought up Jacoby
you're like
Brissett
the-
as if they drafted him in the first round. They trade up to draft him, and they didn't do that. The Patriots never drafted any quarterback in the first round. That's why this is so much more of a
because
story.
they can't draft in the first round. Did you see what happens when they draft in the first round, Johnny?
No, I'm
They
yeah.
take
I'm
Daryl Henderson, who doesn't play. They take N'Keal Harry, who doesn't play. And then they take Jimmy Garoppolo in the second, and he doesn't play. And the Packers are taking Jordan Love in the first, and he doesn't play either. So
I just think the story
Rashad
of
Penny
Aaron
in the first
Rodgers
doesn't play.
is overblown, and we're going to see that when he just continues to dominate and they give him another contract. So,
and I expect
either way,
good things. And Johnny's had a lot of love for Aaron Rodgers this year, and we know that the Matt LaFleur system is a slowed down one. But Travis talking now about Allen Lazard. It's not going to be that 1, 2, 3 wide receivers are all going to feast like they did back in the day. But is Allen Lazard a player that fantasy managers should be targeting later in their drafts?
Sure, 100%, especially with the news coming out that he has solidified. I was hesitant to crown him only because I am a Green Bay fan and I am in love with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I have been for 2 years now. I was in love with what Rodgers said about him in a golf tournament last year and that he played to the speed of the game and he was so good. And then he came out and played like crap last year and was not good. And Allen Lazard stepped up, and Allen Lazard was the guy that Rodgers began to talk about. But if you remember, Rodgers has talked about a lot of players in his life. Jermichael Finley was one of them that he kept trying to hype up every year that never really rose to the thing. Devontae Adams took a while to get there, but he was a guy that he hyped up. So you have to take everything that Rodgers says with a grain of salt because he is the mastermind trying to get stuff out of these players as well. But he has said great things about Allen Lazard. Now, the beat writers are saying he solidified himself. And here's the thing. He's got a 107.9 speed score, according to Player Profile. This guy can burn it down the field. He can be that deep threat for Rodgers and be that big play guy. And that's what this offense, I think, wants to do. You want to have Adams be your possession wide receiver. You want to pound the rock. And then you want to take your shot later in the game or as the game progresses. And Lazard could be that guy that gets the shots taken. So you could be looking at a flex play. That's your poor man, Will Fuller, or your poor man's old Desean Jackson, the guy that can stretch the field on this offense and get that deep play for you guys. And I'm excited about him. And he's so cheap right now. He's going in, I think the 13th, 14th round last time I checked. And I don't think, and it's stayed that way. Because I just don't think the 15th round, 1504. So the industry still does not believe this, even though that there's been good reporting on it. And we've seen years. I mean, we pulled James Jones off the street, and he was scoring like 12 touchdowns that year. So
I think 14,
yeah, there is a lot to be said here about Rodgers elevating the play, even if it is a lower tempo off.
Stick here with the wide receivers, a less exciting one in Tyro Williams. Johnny, you've had, I thought, a lot of really great takes on the wide receiver situation in Las Vegas. Tyrell is not out, but he's down with a torn labrum. He's going to try to stick it out and stay in there.
So painful to play with as a wide receiver. Like you're talking about.
He's already done this before, though, didn't he? I thought he already played through this once before on the Chargers.
He may have.
I mean, we're looking at a guy like Johnny's brought up these points before. He was never meant to be that number one. He was meant to be a complement to Antonio Brown last year after they brought him over from the Chargers. And then the Antonio Brown drama fell out, and Tyrell ended up being that one, technically, behind Darren Waller in reality. But right now, this is a team that's got Hunter Renfrow, who, analytically is not a bad player at all. Just optically is not an impressive player, and that's John Gruden, if you watched Hard Knocks last year, throwing a little shade on the man. But the man analytically plays pretty well, but he's not going to take the top off. Tyro Williams was already an unimpressive number one for them, who's now dealing with a torn shoulder. They've got a couple of impressive rookies, but they're exactly that, rookies. Johnny, we know that Derek Carr is going to be chucking the ball. He's like a low-key, underrated deep ball thrower in terms of accuracy and volume. But what are you expecting right now out of Las Vegas' wide receiver and aerial attack? And is there really anything worth investing in here besides Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs?
Ruggs they want to put him in that AB role. They want to give him those deep targets. So I think that Ruggs is a really nice upside play. I think his ADP is just right to where it's worth the gamble. It's worth the dart throw because That was a major piece they were missing in that offense last year. The other player that I am interested in is Bryan Edwards. He is also a rookie, but you are starting to hear a lot, and I've been kind of touting this guy for a while. A part of
pro
it,
ready.
Yeah, huh?
I'm saying pro ready.
Yeah, he's pro ready. Like the reason why he fell in the draft to where he did was because he had a foot injury coming out of college, so teams were concerned. But coming before that injury, like he was projected to be a much higher draft pick. And so with him, getting healthy, look for them to target him quite. He's a big wide. Like I tell people this, all the time when I'm talking about him. Think of Anquan Bolden 2.0. That is what this guy shapes up to be. And so, yes, there are going to be some lows with him. He is a rookie. Ruggs is also a rookie. There are going to be, lows with him as well. But I like both of them as dart throws in the later rounds because there's going to be an option here. Very similarly to what I said last year in Miami with the Miami Dolphins. I said there's going to be someone to catch the ball there, and that's why I liked, their offense for one of those receivers. Very similarly, I like Raiders. Someone's going to catch the ball. I know that Derek Carr is going to throw over 4,000 passing yards, so I'm interested in the late rounds. Not really Tyrell, but that's just.
I'm not interested in Tyrell anymore. I drafted him at the end of a draft, and I've dropped him and went another direction just because of that.
I think this just proves that Ruggs has a little more upside if Tyrell can't get it going, because Tyrell was the big play guy for them. And now if you move a guy who's like, everybody thinks that Ruggs was just a burner. He wasn't. Like, he's really good at some other underneath and intermediate routes. Like, he's actually a really polished wide receiver. I know it's weird to say that for the Raiders, because usually they just take the burner in the first round and that's who they take. But Ruggs he's got some pedigree, and I would be excited to be drafting Ruggs at his ADP, like Johnny said here.
I would be a Paris Campbell right over here of a guy who's been known just for his burner, but when you hear the takes coming out of camp, it's like this guy's route tree is actually pretty good, and he's got the ability to play a lot more than just that route. So I'm glad to hear you say that, Travi. I haven't heard a lot of takes on Ruggs' ability outside of his sheer speed.
Well, and similarly, like we make fun of John Gruden all the time. We joke about it or whatever. But the fact is the guy knows how to run an offense. Like, he can get players open. So I have full confidence in that. And like you said, most people just think Ruggs can run a 9, but he can do a lot more than that. And John Gruden is smart enough he's just a guy that you got to get the ball. So get him the ball, get him in space. There you go. And they'll do that. So
knock on wood if you're with me.
Yeah, knock on wood if you're with me.
That is we got to bring that one back, man. That's just such a good reflex on there. Well, before we jump into the next subject, one I'm very excited to talk about. Big shout out to everybody in Whisper Nation here who's joined us in the live chat. We've got 15 of y'all watching with us live. Please hit that bell, hit that thumbs up. Helps the channel grow. We're trying to get to 900 over here. And Pontiac died in 1981. He says, hello, Slick Johnny G and TFW. What's going on? Pontiac died in 1981.
Slick Johnny G.
Slick Johnny G. You just got yourself a new nickname, Johnny G.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Slick Johnny G over here. And Groggy Style, he hits us with the question. I've got Cam Newton and Gardner Minshew as my quarterback, single QB league. Should I panic? I'd get excited, brother. Hey, I swear to God. If I drafted in a mock draft both of those guys in rounds 12 and 13 last year, or last night, and I felt good about it.
Hold on. I'll tell you the one instance in which you should panic. If you did not take...
If you're at the disco.
No, if you did not take Gardner Minshew in the first round, so you guys a chance to solidify free Bud Light for an entire year, then you did make a mistake, and you should be worried because they're going to be good. They're going to be good.
I don't even like Bud Light, but could you imagine having free Bud Light for a year? Like, let's go.
Let's go, dude. I love it, dude. And so it's like that. How much is it going to suck for all those people who are like, oh, I kind of believe in Gardner Minshew, but I'll take him late because I know he's going to be there. And then he just comes out and destroys it because it's Gardner Minshew. And then you win your championship. That's cool, but you could have had free Bud Light.
Which would you rather have?
So you heard it first.
Would you rather have a championship and Bud Light?
Johnny G.
Yeah,
Slick Johnny G is making the case for it. So we got 3 more subjects here we're going to be talking on this episode right here. And I've been liking to queue up these talking points, dishing it to Travie, dishing it to Johnny. But right now it's going to be like a cockfight right here. We're just going to say ready, set, go. Backup running back in Pittsburgh.
Well, oh yeah, say it as soon as one guy has a concussion and it can't play. That makes so much sense. That's like so dumb.
Is it his concussion or is it the body that Benny Snell worked on? He came in 12 pounds lighter. Tomlin's been talking since May how he's a different player.
Not a good running back. You better be
Mike Tomlin, who has coached for way more years in the NFL than you have, thinks he's a good running back.
Of course,
because he drafted him,
and
now he's put him ahead of your favorite guy, Anthony Mcfarlane.
Wait, it's funny because it's that whole like your roster. You think it's better than somebody else's, even though the player could be much worse.
Sure. Or I've won a Super Bowl as a coach in the NFL, and I know how to evaluate talent.
Right.
I mean, it's just like that for sure. No, I mean, here, I'm not trying to take another victory lap before the season starts, but Johnny, Benny Snell to me just projected to be a guy that was going to be a better all-around running back and could be the clear backup to James Conner. Is Anthony Mcfarlane maybe the better athlete? Yeah, probably. Is he maybe going to be a better tool for the offense? Who knows? I really don't know.
I will bet right now,
Benny Snell is the handcuff for James Conner, and if James Conner's got a slate of injury risk, he's one of the cheapest handcuffs there are in the league. And
I'll bet right now. I'll do a Whisper Nation bet right now with you that Anthony Mcfarlane will have more fantasy points at the end of the year than your boy Benny Snell. I'll do it right now.
Well, I don't know if I like that bet because I believe in.
Now I hold on a second. Because I don't know.
Hold on a second. Can you let me finish?
No, I want a yes or no.
I don't know yet because I like James Conner, so I'm not going to bet against James Conner finishing the year. The only reason Benny Snell becomes a standalone value is if James Conner is out. And Anthony Mcfarlane, as receiving prowess, who is a guy they'll probably use maybe in the slot a little bit or put out here. So I don't know. I don't really want to make that bet. He's a clear handcuff.
You'd rather have him. You'd rather have him though.
I would.
Snell than the guy you won't take a bet on being better.
I'll make the bet with you, Johnny.
Your hesitation.
You can't admit that you were wrong on him being the backup. But you want me to take a bet with you?
I don't care what. Hold on.
I'll do it.
I don't care what the depth chart tells me. Because I know what I see. Just similarly to, I didn't need the depth chart to say Daryl Williams was the RB2, but guess what? He is the RB2 now. I know these things, so I don't need to say, well, the depth chart right now
it must be so hard for you to be so right all the time.
Snell is the number 2 right now. I don't need that.
It must be so hard.
What do you mean? What's so hard?
How's that working? You just project the future. You know everything that's gonna happen.
No, when I am wrong, I tell you guys when I'm wrong. I admitted the Zack Moss, did I not? I did. If I am right,
Johnny, I'm still not even okay with you saying you're wrong on Zack Moss. We're in the middle of the 3rd week of a condensed training camp. We have no idea what any of this means. They have not played a single down of football, and you're trying to take victory laps on other players.
I'm not taking
just like I'm trying to take. Just like I'm trying to take a victory lap on fucking Benny Snell right now. But like the bottom line is we don't know, man.
I'm going to take a victory lap myself on the setup for this dynamic. This cockfight has gone down better than I had imagined when it was taken up. Brandon S. in the chat says there's always beef here when it comes to the RB2 in Pittsburgh. Put it in the bio line. It's becoming that true here. Anthony Mcfarlane versus Benny Snell between Big Travie and Johnny Game Time Hicks is now a staple in our show. Just to read the reports. Benny Snell came into camp 12 pounds lighter. He's been reportedly faster this time around it and is looking like the backup to James Conner right now. It doesn't mean, just as Travie and Johnny said, Anthony Mcfarlane might be the superior back, the more athletic dude, but at least on the replacement of James Conner, it's looking like Benny Snell with that extra year. So far, right now, today, might have a leg up on Anthony Mcfarlane. But we're going to take this one, and they've got a bet now on the table, and we'll see how this works out. God forbid anything does end up happening to James Conner. Do you guys want to throw in anything there before we move on to our second to last topic here?
I will buy Johnny a hat of his choice if Anthony McFarlane scores more points than Benny Snell.
All right,
but
I will do the same.
Have you heard him say anything about Benny Snell being the backup to James Conner? Even though he said he always admits when he's wrong, we're hearing it right now that he's the backup, but you still won't admit that you were wrong in the take from months ago where I said that he would be the backup.
Hold on, again.
No.
Anthony McFarlane has been injured.
It's your narrative.
Anthony McFarlane has been injured. So that is why he has not been giving all the opportunity, and he's a rookie. So it's going to take a time. He's not just going to come out day one and say, "Oh, Anthony McFarlane's the RB2 right now behind behind Conner." He's not going to do that. It's going to take time. I am telling you, by the time
I don't know where you're
needed,
McFarlane
by
was
the time
injured. I haven't seen.
Okay, well, look it up.
That.
He got a concussion.
I'm looking.
Okay,
I don't see it.
Well, he did. So I'm letting you know. And by the time it is needed, Anthony McFarland will be the actual one you're going to want in case James Conner goes down by whatever time. I'm just saying that. I don't care what it says going into week 1. It could say Snell is the RB2. That is fine until the time comes when James Conner goes down. It will not be. I
just don't
Benny
get it. Like
Snell
you cared enough.
You
cared enough to say it with Daryl Williams, but you don't care now because it doesn't fit your narrative.
No. Hold on. No, the point was is that when I said it, guess where Daryl Williams was on the depth chart? They were saying he was going to get cut. He was 4th. He was 4th on the depth chart. That's why I bring it up. That's why I say, hey, I know what I'm saying when I see on tape. Versus value.
Guess when I said Benny Snell was going to be the backup right after they drafted your boy Anthony McFarlane. And now here we are when the season's starting, and who's the backup,
okay.
Just like they're saying in Kansas City.
Again,
Benny
as
Snell.
A guy who is injured. That is...
I don't know where you're getting
this.
Going. You better find it.
Just keep going. Because
you're going to have to find a lot more camp coming up. If we're this excited right now, and we haven't even gotten started yet in this NFL season, Whisper Nation, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because they're going to be bringing this energy all season long, not just through camp. This isn't just a camp show. This is a all year long fantasy football platform, bringing you the ins and outs of not just the fantasy football takes on the field, but the community and the culture at large. So make sure you have liked and subscribed on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Check out thefantasywhispers.com. You can pick up that draft kit for just $15 to get yourself ahead in your upcoming drafts. 2 more subjects here. We're going to go back
real quick. Anthony McFarlane has been placed in the concussion protocol. Brooke Pryor of ESPN reports as of yesterday.
So we do look like we got a concussion.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. I wasn't seeing it. That's all I was saying. I hadn't seen it.
All right.
And Anthony McFarlane was battling the third string. The other Ulysses Gilbert was battling with that guy like a week ago for the third string stuff.
And he's going to quickly move up.
So, your whole thing was like that he had a concussion and that's why he wasn't. I
said it goes
just
in tandem.
as of yesterday. So
just keep going. Just keep going.
We'll do it live then.
Yeah, just keep going.
So excited to see what happens. James Conner is and I don't want to call him a sleeper pick for us, but I think James Conner is being undervalued. Because we know there is no debate on who the number 1 is over there in Pittsburgh, and that's James Conner. Some debate, though, about the receiver situation going on in New York out of the Jets. I think it's an exciting opportunity that I'm not surprised at all if we're entirely disappointed with everybody who plays on the Jets. But right now, we're not leaning on the disappointment. We're going to lean on a little bit of the hype. James Crowder has been by far the best receiver out of the Jets camp. Brashad Perriman and Chris Hogan there are looking to be locked into those 3 wide receiver sets. And Chris Herndon is gaining some extra hype. Now, we didn't mention Denzel Mims, who was their highly touted rookie they took in this year. He looks like to be the 4th man sitting out right now. But Big Travie, what's your take right now on the Jets' aerial weapons? We talked a lot about their running backs, but let's talk a little bit about their pass catchers. Is there anybody you're fading or leaning up a little bit with now as drafts are getting closer, Travis?
I want to buy into the Chris Herndon take. He's an athletic guy. He had a really good rookie season. He had a throwaway season last year. I know he's sitting in that realm. You might as well snag him because the upside's there. but I think he runs in the similar part of the field as Jamison Crowder, who I expect to get so much of this offense's attention. But Herndon has had a great camp, and so I'm probably not investing in Crowder because it's just kind of like when you get in the later rounds, you're not really looking for that safe floor play. You want some more, or at least I personally would like some more upside. And Herndon provides the upside in that offense for me. Another one that's interesting is Perriman, but I believe he's been battling some of injuries of his own in camp. And so there's some things going on there that I'm not really as akin to. I think Herndon is the answer for me as far as aerial weapons here, and he's so cheap, it's worth the stab.
What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm on the same. I have the same thought process as Travis.
We know that I'm still holding on to Brashad Perriman. His raw physicality, 26-year-old, burner speed, 6'2", former first-round pick who they brought him over. We just got to see it. It's tough to say. Adam Gase is like, God, that guy is like a flat tire. It's like, come on, man. Like, air it up and let's go. But I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know already. So our final subject here on this Friday afternoon of ours is about the Eagles and their offensive line and the impacts that could have. We've been talking about the Eagles' offensive line as being a fortress for a while. Doug Peterson and the team have done a really good job about building that up. But 2 of their 5 starting linemen are now out. Brandon Brooks was out for the entire year with a torn Achilles, and Andre Dillard now is going to be out for months with a torn bicep. That could be a really nasty one there. They're moving people around. Johnny, are you nervous right now about this line of the Eagles coming down? And if so or if not, how does this impact Miles Sanders and the rest of the playmakers over there in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I am really concerned because they have one of the best offensive lines in football. And that was why I was so excited about Miles Sanders and so comfortable and confident with taking him. If you're, coming into the season and you're already saying, 2 out of the 5 RBs or 2 out of the 5 linemen already down, it's, they kind of dodged a bullet a couple weeks ago when they were able to get Peters to come back. And so it's like, oh, you're like, okay, whew, we'll be okay. But then 2 more additional. And then you've got a season of COVID and all these other factors too. Makes me really concerned for Miles Sanders for sure. I think he's much more, which has been adapted now for his ADP because of his injury as well. But I think he's much more of an RB or a second round running back as opposed to he was sneaking there in like that 10, 9, 10, 11 spot in redrafts. And I thought that was a little too high. So I think he's a little bit more accurately priced now.
I think he also benefits from the fact that he's a superb pass catcher too. So like that will be a big part of his upside too. Like he's not just going to rely on a Josh Jacobs who relies on his elite running ability, but that's the only part of his game. If the line were to struggle, you'd be really worried about Josh Jacobs. Whereas Miles Sanders, if the line struggles, he's going to have an outlet as the passing game. And then there's all these question marks at wide receiver every year with the Eagles now, it seems like. And so Sanders fits in well there too. They did bring in Jason Peters. He's 38 years old, but that was kind of to deal with the first injury that they sustained on the line. So you can't plug the hole of 2 guys with 1 guy. So that's really not going to work too well. There will be some damage here, but sometimes a veteran line that's together can pick up the play of a younger guy or 2. So maybe that's what happens here. I wouldn't be all doom and gloom with the Eagles. They tend to put out pretty good linemen year after year.
Pretty competent team, top to bottom. I think they'll probably figure it out. Boys, we've come to the end of our section on here of what's going on in camp. Is there any other thoughts you'd like to let Whisper Nation know before we call it an afternoon? Johnny?
Just please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are trying to get to 900 and then hopefully to 1,000 subscribers. That would be awesome. Have a great weekend. You guys got anything planned? I know I have a couple of drafts this weekend. If you need help with your draft, go on over to thefantasywhispers.com and grab that draft kit. It is in the description below. There's a link as well to that. But you guys have any drafts this weekend?
I got no drafts this weekend. I think everybody should follow at Johnny_GameTime on Twitter and give him a shout out for his fire takes today. He did a great job, and I just love him so much, and I just wanted to know that. So,
Hey, likewise.
Follow Johnny and Travis. I think you guys have been really, I mean, I'll just speak it honest here. You guys have been really up in your Twitter game. TFW is moving hard into the industry of fantasy football. We've been here for a little bit, but we are now here, and the takes Johnny and Travis have been pulling together on Twitter, along with the Fantasy Whispers official handle, has really elevated the game. And do yourself a favor. Follow them on Twitter. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm sure you've already done that. If you haven't, what the hell are you thinking? Subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure you're following for all of the daily content that Johnny and Travis and everybody else on the TFW team has been pulling together. But a special plug for Twitter. Hit them up on Twitter. Follow them. You're going to get some really juicy tidbits that are going to sit in your brain, grow into blossoming tidbits to help you in your fantasy league coming up. And I'm just so excited for the season coming in, guys. We've been having a hell of an off season. There's been COVID. There's been civil uprisings. There's been a lot of indecisions that gone on. Our league of record has had to take an alternative path for our 10th year anniversary, which has been really hard. But to see the way our league has rallied around the real obstacles that we have in front of us and to create an experience that is rich and exciting, I encourage all of you to do the same thing and just to lean into the people who comprise your league. At the end of the day, it's really about the people that you're playing alongside with, and what are bragging rights if you're not excited to hold those over your league mates there. So I just love being on in the league with all of you guys and doing what we're doing, and I know Whisper Nation does as well. And lean into that love as we're coming up to the start of the real NFL season. It's a hell of a time, and I can't wait for it.
All right. Until next time, that's Big Travie. That's Austin Sear, and I'm Johnny Game Time, and we're out of here. Peace.
Peace. Benny Snell.